Welcome to Studio Chat, an entertainment talk show covering movies, TV, music, and more. I'm Chelsea, here with an absolute icon of entertainment, a man of many roles who has most likely been on your favorite show at some point. Ronnie Schell, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, my pleasure. Good being with you.
Thank you so much. Now, you have such an impressive history as a performer. It's truly hard to even decide where to begin, but there's no better place to start than the present. So could you start off by telling me what you're up to right now in 2022?
Well, to tell you the truth, I am semi-retired. My last big gig, well, I still do concerts, comedy concerts. I was in Cincinnati in June, and 2 weeks ago I was up in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and I did concerts there, and about an hour and a half of my comedy, and I show film for some of the things I've done, and it's been working. Other than that, I don't get around like I used to. I worked 50 years in Vegas, and that impressed me. I did all these other television shows, as you probably grew up watching. And,
Absolutely.
And every night, do you guys get MeTV where you live?
Yes, yeah, I love MeTV.
I'm on every night at 9 o'clock on Gomer Pyle.
Yes.
I play his best friend, Duke, and that was a memorable role for me because I was with Jim for 7 years, 5 years of the Gomer Pyle show, and then he did a show after that called the Jim Nabors Hour on CBS, and I played his comedy goofball on that show, and so it's been a good run.
Absolutely.
I have no objections.
That's good, and neither does anyone who's been able to observe your comedy and your skills. And like I said, you're a man of many talents. You've played many roles. I'm sure people ask you about Gomer Pyle all the time, but I did see the Jim Nabors Hour and you appearing in that. So, I mean, can you talk a little more about your connection with Jim Nabors and working with him for so long?
Yeah, I've said this. I had a long relationship. As a friend, as a buddy of Jim Nabors, and starting way back before I even did any television. And I've only met two people who had absolutely no enemies. I mean it sincerely. People who were just loved by everyone. One was my wife, who I'm still married to, thank God. And the other one was Jim. Everybody loved Jim. Everybody. So that was an easy one for me to hang around and entertain with. It started many years ago, before he was even famous. He was working at a club in Santa Monica called the Horn, which is no longer there. But he would come on. He had a strange act. He'd come on and, well, as you know, his reputation, he would sing really baritone and opera and everything like that. And then when he talked like that. He's so like that,
Yes, the contrast there.
Yeah, the contrast was phenomenal. People just went ape over him. And so my manager at the time was a guy named Dick Lake. And he handled Eddie Griffith and Ken Berry and a couple others, Frankie Avalon. And he heard about Jim, and so he went to Andy, and they were doing the Andy Griffith show, and said, "Listen, there's a guy working out the horn. We have to see if he'd be part of our Mayberry show." And so they went out, and they heard him. Andy's comment was, "Well, I don't know exactly what he does, but what he does, he's the best at it." And that's how Jim got on the Andy Griffith show, and then from that he did Gomer Pyle, and from him doing Gomer Pyle, I got a chance because I knew Jim from the Horn and the Purple Onion in San Francisco, where we both worked, and that's how I got on Gomer Pyle and got to know him, and then I started touring with him during the off season, and that's why we were buddies right up to the end.
Oh, very nice. And that's interesting to know that even when you weren't on TV together, you were still working together in some way, doing live shows and touring as comedians as well.
We never had I've been thinking about this, but people ask me, did you ever have arguments with Jim or any, anti-personality traits we never had one negative thing said about each other in person or otherwise. He was a golden guy as far as I'm concerned, and I still miss him. I really do.
Oh, no, I'm sure. No, that's wonderful though that you had all those years together of so many pleasant interactions and fun times, and that's
and even
excellent.
on the road, he was a gas to be with. He was fun to be with. We go night clubbing and stuff like that. His private life was, well, you probably know, was a little different than mine. And but when we were together, we were just good old buddies, and wonderful relationship with him. He was like my older brother.
Oh, that's very nice. I'm also curious to dig in a little bit. You mentioned your 50 years of performing in Vegas. I mean, that is a long run of comedy and performances and everything. What are some of the, I want to say, the craziest things you've seen in your times in Vegas?
Well, let me tell you something. When I started working in Vegas, I was one of several comedians who had a steady job of opening in the hotels and the the hotels and the lounges with big name singers. I worked with all of them. The only two I never worked with were Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, which I'll tell you why I didn't later on. But I worked with most of them, and so the first, I'd say, 35 years, I would, work with these great singers, and I never had to headline because they were the headliners. Actually, the one who stopped at having comics open for them was believe it or not, was Diana Ross. She worked with me and at Caesar's Palace. She was nice enough, but she went to her manager, who later told my agent. And she said, well, I don't need it. Let's save some money. I don't need an opening act.
Oh, wow.
I come out and I say, well, that started a trend. And if you look now in Vegas, they have headliners, but they don't have the opening comics like you. And so then all of us comedians, we moved over to the opera rooms, which they're still going in Vegas now. And that was sort of the demise of big time comedians working, opening for other singers or being on the bill for great singers. But I worked with the best of them. Everybody asked me who my favorite singer was, and without a doubt, Glenn Campbell. I just loved his singing. I loved his musicianship on the guitar, and I worked with a lot of guys. I worked with Belay, I worked with Tony Bennett 3 times, and all these other singers, Peggy Lee, a lot of female singers, and it was always a fun to open for these guys and gals, and so I sort of missed that. And of course, if there were big headliners, then I missed their crowds.
Oh, good point. No, but I agree with you on the Glenn Campbell point. I've always admired him. What a wonderful musician.
What a great musician. Great musician, yeah. And he was also fun to be with. He was from Delight, Arkansas. And then he had 6 or 7 brothers and sisters, but whatever that means, I don't know. But he was very, very hokey, not hokey, it's a bad word, country.
Yes.
Oriented, and he was just, and when he sang it, boy, you felt it,
Absolutely. No, I'm sure in person it was probably phenomenal as well.
Very, very, very nice.
Very cool. Yeah, so I mean, you've, always had comedy, all along the years. That's really how you got your start in entertainment, whether it was local shows or, school shows, anything you were doing. But you did make your television debut on stage next to an iconic comedian, You Bet Your Life with Groucho Marx. I'm sure
Right.
you get asked about it a lot, but I personally cannot tell you how much I love the Marx Brothers and Groucho in particular. So I'd love to hear anything you can share about that experience with him.
Well, I will tell you, I was scared to death.
I
I
bet.
was just starting out, and John Goodell was the producer. He produced the You Bet Your Life, and so I auditioned up in San Francisco. I was working up there, and they said, "Yeah, we'd like to have you." So on the first day of filming everything before the show, I said, "Now listen, I'm a comedian. I'm going to say some funny things." Yes, and the producer said, "Well, you could do that, but remember, this is the Groucho Marx show. We have scissors." I said, "Okay." So I was on the show. It was a pleasant engagement, and I found him just wonderful. You heard about some of these guys when they get big, they get antsy and terrible. He was just great to me and very complimentary. So he was a joy to work with. I later saw him one more time when I was doing the Carson show, and he was in the audience. He came back, made it a point to say, "You were on my show. You were very funny." And so I had a great memory of being with Groucho.
Oh, that's wonderful. And that's so great he remembered you too. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that was a great experience for me. My favorite singer of all time, to me, but this is personal, is Frank Sinatra. But I was always afraid to meet him because all the comics I told that he worked with told me that he could be mean if he had a few drinks. And so I said, "Well, I think I'll avoid meeting. You don't want to meet your heroes and then have them, demean you or be naughty." But he was my favorite singer, and I worked with Sammy Jr., Sammy Davis, and the Rat Pack. But I avoided.
I see. But working with Sammy Davis and, just any interaction with the Rat Pack, was that part of your Vegas adventures?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I stayed clear of it. I
see.
But I would go to see their show. Whenever Sinatra had a concert, I would make it a point to go see it because nobody could sing like him as far as I'm concerned. And and I worked with Goulet and Tony Bennett and all these great I can't think of some of their names. Some of them went into obscurity, but a lot of them, like Peggy Lee and Jude Christie and those powerful singers. Carol Burnett. I opened for her in her only Vegas appearance at Caesar's Palace, and that was a thrill. And I got to know her actually through Jim Nabors, and we became lifelong friends. She's still around. And
yes, I love her as well.
Yeah. So that's my Vegas story. And so about 4 years ago, I think it's been 4 years, I decided, I don't know, I'd go to Vegas and I'm a gambler. And so I got to wondering, what am I doing there? I go there and I work out in the hotels, in the gyms, and I just stay there for 2, sometimes 3 or 4 weeks. And so I said, "Oh, that's enough for me." So I quit work in Vegas.
That's reasonable. It wasn't, an atmosphere that you felt completely, a part of, but, you still, I'm sure, got a lot of fun opportunities, a lot of shows and, interactions with celebrities and stuff. So.
I didn't need it. By that time, I didn't need it,
Right.
I could still work there, and I was working there 3 times a year, usually headlining in the improv comedy rooms, and that was fun. But after a while,
Yeah. No, that makes sense, definitely. Now, there's so much to your resume and your background that, it's a little hard to pinpoint things, but there's a few things I wanted to kind of focus on and call out of it here. One of them is you were in 4 different episodes of the show Emergency, and I bring that up because that's a show that's in the spotlight right now. It's the 50th anniversary. They've made a documentary special. They did a reunion event in California, so there's a lot of focus on Emergency right now. So do you have any specific memories from doing that show?
Only that I did all those episodes, and I loved working with those 2 guys. The Indian kid, he's part Indian, and the other guy who's a good actor, by the way.
Yes, Kevin Tying, Randolph Mantooth.
Exactly. Mantooth is the Indian, right?
Yes, he is.
Anyway, we had a great time. And my tie-in is that Bobby Troup, Bobby Troup, also a good singer and piano player.
Yes.
And married to Julie London. And he was a regular. Well, Julie London was on the show, too.
She was indeed. They both were on the show, yes.
Yes, right. And Bobby Troup's daughter, Cynnie Troup, introduced me to my wife. So that I had a tie-in there. In fact, we just lost Cynnie 2 weeks ago.
Oh, my goodness. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, me too. She's a great lady, great little lady. And so that was my tie-in. But I had great times at Emergency. I got to know Jack, oh God, what's his name? He'll kill me now.
Jack Webb, right?
Jack Webb,
yes, yeah, because you were also on Adam 12 as well, right?
Yeah, I did 2 Adam 12s.
Yes.
And Jack was he used to come to the Horde where I worked, I told you before, and sit in the
Jack Webb, Adam 12, Emergency, that connection makes sense. But I love that connection with Cynnie Troup there, introducing you to your wife, and you're still together today. So that's a beautiful connection with that whole world there.
Well, let me tell you how that started. I was doing a show. I did 3 episodes of the Patty Duke show. You remember Patty Duke?
Yes, absolutely. Patty Duke is also wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, great lady. And the script supervisor on that show was Cynnie Troup, Bobby Troup's daughter. So I got to know her, and at that time I was not married and I didn't have a girlfriend. And one day we were talking, and Cynnie was so cute. I said, "You got to find me a new girlfriend. I'm running out." And she said, "Well, I can tell you about my best friend. Just broke up with her boyfriend for a long engagement." I said, "Well, yeah, what's she like?" So he rolled out this picture, and it was a young lady in a bikini, blonde, beautiful lady on the beach at Oahu. Yeah, Oahu. And I said, "That's her. Introduce me." And that's how I met my wife.
Oh my goodness. What a story.
Yeah, it's a true story. And the first, I should have known, because who was going to be in charge, because the first night when I went to pick her up, she was playing bridge, and she made me wait 45 minutes while she finished the bridge game.
That's what a dynamic. I love that.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the thing. It just kind of goes to show how, one thing leads to another. And
Absolutely.
I'm sure, especially back then, the TV world and Hollywood and everything, a lot of interconnections. Everybody knows everybody, things kind of come full circle
true.
Like that.
That's true. Definitely. That's very true. I got to know most of the people in show business, and I have my friends that are in show business, and half and half. Time with me is half time with the others. But as you get older, and you're not there yet, but your close friends start passing, and I see that happening all the time now. Someone will come and say, "You're not what's today? What's today?" Passed on, and that's sort of the negative part of knowing so many great people.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, and a very sad aspect of honestly being human in general.
Yeah,
it's
that's very true.
The eventual thing. No, but I mean, at least you have a lot of great experiences and memories, and things that you can look back on, and all these people, and still I'm grateful to be able to hear some of these stories from you, and kind of passing on the memories as well. So I appreciate that.
Well, we'll do it again then. Call me anytime and we'll
Sure.
relive some more memories.
I do have if you have time, I have a few more questions I'd like to ask
Go
you,
ahead,
though.
sure.
Sure. I mean, so another area of classic TV that I personally am a fan of are the Gary Marshall TV shows, Happy Days, Mork and Mindy, along those lines. And you had some appearances on those shows. So anything you can share about working on those?
I loved working on them. I did 3 episodes of Happy Days. I got to know... I got to know all the cast in Happy Days. They were all nice kids. And what was the other one you mentioned?
Mork and Mindy as well, yeah.
I did the only 1-hour Mork and Mindy show in the series, and that was a quite an experience because Robin Williams was a genius at what he did. He was came up with lines and bits that the average comic would never think about doing. And I always admired that. And that whole 2 weeks, I did most of the talking. Unless he was doing his bits, he was very quiet, very humble, very nice. So, yes, I had a great experience working with Robin.
Oh, that's wonderful. And that's great to hear. I've only heard good things about Robin Williams as a person as well. You know, off camera, he seemed to have been a lovely person as well.
He was very much.
That's great. Now, for you, Ronnie, you have a very recognizable voice, and you did transition into a little more voice acting later in your career. So how did you like stepping a little more behind the camera that way?
I liked it, and I never thought I would do it because when I first started, all the great voices had lower baritones and bass voices, and I always had the one you're hearing now, which is pretty high. And so when people say, "How come you don't do more radio?" And I said, "My voice is not down to it." So I never got it, but after a while, I snuck in there, and I got the acceptance, I guess, after a while. But I never looked for a career in voiceovers.
I see. It was the kind of thing that just came up and you rolled with it, right?
I rolled with it. I got about 150 commercials, voices over to my credit that I've kept copies of for, I don't know for who.
For yourself, why not? Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. No, but I mean, there's a lot of people who, love to see. I mean, even commercials, classic commercials. There's a whole market for that of people who just enjoy that form of entertainment. Because commercials are a lot different these days. Definitely less entertaining, I think.
Yeah.
Back then it was a lot more interesting, and there would be a lot more either guest stars, people like you, appearing in them, or just kind of a little more fun storyline than a lot of the.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I was a spokesman for an airline out here on the West Coast, Pacific Southwest Airlines, PSA, for 10 years. And all we did was funny commercials, and we got great response on that. And I was spokesman for Dodge Dealers of America for 4 years, and I enjoyed that. And the spokesman job is a good one if you can get some kind of control of what you're allowed to do or what you're not allowed to do. And we had a great time because I was in on the writing of all the commercials I did.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I was going to ask you that because, a lot of times with a commercial format, it might be a certain ad copy or something that, a strict scripted work, but you were able to kind of have fun with it and do some writing yourself?
Always.
Awesome.
And I never overstepped my bounds, so to speak, because I didn't want to say, "Well, yeah, you're funny, but you're not right for this commercial." So I blended into whatever was asked, and I lucked out. I was spokesman for NBC on ice hockey when they put ice hockey on national television. It was a brief run. I think it was 3 years, and I played the animated hockey puck, Peter Puck, for 3 years, and then they NBC canceled the thing on hockey, and I went to Canada. Didn't go to Canada, but I did the Canadian version of television, being Peter Puck, and that was nice another nice film for a couple of years.
That's cool. Kept Peter Buck alive, even in another country. That's funny. Something else that comes up working on a lot of shows, films, even commercials is, I'm sure you've worked with a ton of directors. So are there any that have really stood out to you over the years, or anyone you feel like you learned something special from?
I'm going to be honest, I was very lucky. I can't think of half their names, but I always got something from the direction. People say, "Oh, it's not the direction; it's you or you did it." But a director can give you one great big bit of advice before you do a take or something like that. And I always got that from directors. So I always admired all the directors I worked with. To name one without the other ones would be not nice.
Of course, yeah, not very fair. I didn't mean to single it out like that. Just, of course.
But I worked with some great directors.
Definitely.
Not Steven Spielberg's, but other guys.
That's okay. There's a lot of great ones out there, even if they don't have that name.
It sure is. It sure is.
And you're also known for making live appearances at conventions and special events like the Hollywood show that we met at. Do you have any kind of moments or connections with fans that you feel have been particularly impactful?
I'm trying to think. I've been very lucky. If people don't know who I am, I don't go out and say, "Hey, I'm Ronnie Schell. I did this, I did that." I just leave them alone. But when they come to see me and compliment me, I love talking to them. I've always had positive results from the fans of those conventions, like the one that you and I met.
I mean, it's great that you're making these appearances, because there are plenty of people who will recognize you and have seen you in so much in your career there. And either if they haven't seen you, they've at least heard you in some form of animation or something else. Yeah. So, there's plenty to dig into in your background there. They're like, hey, that's that Ronnie Schell guy, right?
And every once in a while you get, "Oh, is that you? Oh, my God."
That's great.
Which I enjoy, yeah.
What do you feel has been the most, maybe it doesn't have to be one single one, but, some of the more unique projects or characters you worked on, something that just struck you as very different from the rest?
You mean acting roles? Or
yeah, just anything you've worked on, acting roles, shows, anything at all.
I've enjoyed it all. If somebody said, "What is your favorite role?" I have to, like I told you before, it'd be working with Jim Nabors, Gomer Pyle. But I can't think of a project that I ever worked on that I didn't care for. So I was lucky that the directors chose me because I was interested in that particular venue or episode or whatever you want to call it. And so I had all pleasant memories. I had no real personal favorites.
I definitely wouldn't ask you for your favorites, because I'm sure that's too hard to narrow down. But I mean, as a character actor, there's a lot of one-shot, quick appearances. You're there for one episode and done, and probably not much of a connection with some of them in that brief time. But was there any show you appeared in that you felt like you really wanted to do more of? Like you would have kept going with it if you could, kind of thing?
That's interesting. I can't think. Well, of course, in those days, money was very important to me, and not that it isn't now. But I do a show and I say, "I'd like to do more of these, kind of make some more money." But as far as wanting to stay on a show for a long time, I never had that. I like variety. I like to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
No, that's great. I mean, because it kept you moving around, giving you lots of different characters, different opportunities, different ways to express yourself.
That's right.
I also saw that you were on only one episode. One of your kind of one-shot episode deals here was on The Love Boat, and that's such a fun show because they got every guest star under the sun to be on The Love Boat at that time.
Which show?
The Love Boat.
Oh yeah, I played the director on an episode. Yeah, and I got to know all of the cast pretty well. And in fact, I just worked with one of the guys. I can't think of his name. He'll kill me. He played the waiter, one of the waiters.
Would it be Ted Lang, the bartender?
He was one of the main stars. but he was a great guy, and I got to know him. And I got to know everybody on Love Boat. And Bernie Capel was a friend of mine, and all these other stars. And so that was a pleasant memory.
Definitely.
I only did one episode of that, but it was memorable, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it definitely was. And that's what I'm saying. The Love Boat managed to get so many stars together. Everybody from TV and film of that decade and of the previous decades. They had, classic movie stars from the 30s appearing. I saw Joan Blondell on there once, and it's just, they got everybody together.
You're absolutely right. That's true. It was a great fun to do the show. And of course, the guy who sang the theme, Jack Jones, was a close friend of mine because I worked with him in Vegas, and he did that Love Boat. He's a good singer.
And of course, I believe he's Alan Jones's son who worked with the Marx Brothers. So again, everything connecting, right?
You're absolutely right. And his most famous film was the one where they're opera. Night at the Opera, is that it?
Yes, Night at the Opera. Wonderful one.
Alan Jones.
Yes, he was something as well. Another favorite show of mine that I always enjoyed, that you did one episode appearance on, was the show One Day at a Time.
Yes, I played the landlord who kicked Bonnie Franklin and her two girls out of the apartment.
What a pleasant role, right?
Yeah, it was a great role. I know it was a one-time shot because they came back the next week and I didn't. But they were all fun to work with, and the guy who played not the landlord, but the guy who did the mechanics of what do they call those?
Oh, yes. It was Pat Harrington, right? The Schneider character, yes.
He was an old friend of mine, so...
Oh, very nice.
We enjoyed that relationship, yeah.
Now, that's great. He's another excellent comedian as well. I always enjoyed his performances.
Yeah, he died too young.
He absolutely did. No, it's a shame. For sure, but it's another one of those instances where at least there's a legacy and documentation and film of, we can appreciate his talents even afterwards.
Very true.
Definitely.
So where do we hear all this?
So this is going to be on Studio Chat. It's a rather new entertainment talk show. I have a YouTube channel and a website. It's been an honor to have you as my guest. I mean, I've admired your work, and you have so many wonderful stories. So I'm delighted to have talked to you.
We'll do it. We've only scratched the surface.
Sure, absolutely. I would love to have a follow-up part 2 sometime.
Call me and we'll talk more. We just scratched the surface of show business.
Thanks so much for your time.
Good luck and thanks.